I'm going to jump right in and introduce She Knows Media's own Director of SEO, Lindsay Valdez, and invite her to the stage. Lindsay's been an SEO for over a decade, and she's going to share some of her SEO best practices, making you super savvy so that your content can be discovered much more easily and help you build more sustainable traffic. Lindsay will also be available in the She Knows Partner Network booth, and we're happy to continue conversations around how we can help you grow your audience in the search space.
As Deb said, my name is Lindsay Valdez, and I have been at She Knows Media for roughly 5 years working on SEO. Just to kind of gauge the room before I get started, how many of you have a general idea what SEO is? All right, I'm going to ask one more question just so I know how to sort of cater what are the tips that I'm going through. How many are working off a website built in WordPress? All right, lots of hands out there. Great. So we are going to get started here with the presentation. And thank you so much for being here today. I've had a chance to work with bloggers throughout the years and help them. It's an audience that I'm so passionate about, and I want to help them continue to grow your own audience through organic search results. So I will get going. All right, so first I'm going to start out with just an intro into SEO and talk a little bit about the on-page SEO elements. These are the things that you can control. I encourage you to jot down terms that you might not be familiar with as I go through this presentation, that you can either look up later or find me back there afterwards just to get an idea of some of these more technical terms, but I do promise to keep it pretty high level. So I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm also going to talk about the different places in the search results that you can appear and that your blog can appear. One thing you may have noticed throughout the last couple of years is just a change of landscape of the search engine results page. Google puts a lot of different things in there now that haven't been there in the past, and it's a great time to use all of that real estate to maximize your potential to get traffic from Google. And I'm going to end with just 5 basic tips. Search engine optimization is so old school. People thought SEO and keywords, and that was pretty much it. Right now, the ecosystem of what Google considers the factors that work into the rankings and the search results is so much more than keywords. You have this sort of ecosystem with great content, authority. You have to build the authority. You also have mobile search and things along that line that all kind of come into it. Page speed, I'm sure you're sort of familiar with all of these different parts, and all engagement, that's another huge one to try to get people engaged on your site. All of these things work together for Google's algorithm that ranks websites. All right, so several things to keep in mind as I just want to talk about a little bit about the history of SEO. So it's been around since early 2000. Oftentimes people were doing tactics that weren't good for the content, for the user, all of these things, keyword stuffing, over-optimization, adding all these things on the page. And there came a point where Google just kind of said, it's our responsibility to place great content and authentic people, helpful, useful, usable content into the rankings, and we've got to weed out these old school practices of spammy content. You do still see it sometimes, but for the most part, Google is very controlled on what they have in the top organic listings. And no one really scrolls past the first few, right? Like you definitely want to be in that top of the page to maximize the click. Very rarely are you going to the next page to look. So certain factors today that you should all be focusing on are more like high quality content, useful links, promote each other's content. All of these things sort of factor into nowadays SEO. All right, so I'm going to move here into how to look good in the search results. This is where you see your site. These are the things you can control from WordPress. I'm just going to use that as a standard. any template that you have should have fields in it that you can optimize your post. So some of the things, a title tag. It is the most important, most heavily weighted element on your search engine, on your website. And this is for the search engines to be able to correlate what your title of your blog is with the content, and then what search result queries they find it most relevant for. So it's very important that you're optimizing not only the home page of your blog or website, but also every individual post. If you are putting the time into building a great piece of content, you want to make sure that there's a title that's optimized for search. There's definitely a fine line here of keeping it also interesting. Lots of times, and I work every day with editorial teams and also bloggers, and a lot of times they equate SEO with like a boring topic, right? What to make for dinner, things of that nature. And I just want to encourage you all, at such a competitive space with bloggers and other publishing websites, to really make them unique and interesting, because when a user lands on that results page, they're gonna read the titles, and these show prevalent in these search results. So make sure that's also interesting, but includes the search term. And after that, we have the meta description field. These are the things that you can see on the search results landing page. Now, Google says that meta descriptions are no longer actually SEO elements, but I make sure that the people I work with are adding them, because this is the one little snippet of time that you have to put your sales hat on, tell the user exactly what they're going to get if they decide to click on your site. So it is important to fill those out. A hack is, if you do not want to write individual meta descriptions because they can just be so time consuming, take a sentence, an optimized sentence that explains what your post is, and put it in the meta description. Otherwise, Google is going to scrape the page and put whatever they want there, and oftentimes it does not make sense. And then lastly, we have site links. This is when you come to a ranking page and you see the main page, and then you might see the other links to the different navigation pieces of the site. Just make sure that your website, the navigation is clear. Use those elements. If you're a food blogger, you would have recipes, dinner recipes, lunch recipes, all the different ways that you might break out the pages for the search results. This is where Google will put additional links in the search results for you, and it has increased click-through rate almost up to 50% across the board. It's a great thing to have. The way to do it is just to make sure that your navigation elements are very clear and well optimized to explain, what the user is going to find if they click on that portion of your site. So these, again, are the things that you have control over. You should be doing this for every post, and most importantly, also your home page. Make sure that that is optimized for search. I work with so many bloggers that the title tag of their site just says the brand, and the brand is great, but that's not going to tell Google what your site is about. So make sure that you're also incorporating keywords. All right, this next part is where I break out the additional opportunities that you have to appear in the search results. Go back 5-6 years ago and you just saw blue links is what they were called. They're just the top 10 blue links, and Google, if you think about it, they really are a product, right? They're trying themselves to answer the search queries, and they, by doing so, they've pieced out different areas, especially on mobile. And you guys all know these. These are the carousels that you scroll through where you're like, oh, there's that knowledge graph that talks about the brand. How did that even get there? So I'm going to quickly go through these opportunities, and it makes it where you have the chance to rank for just more than the blue link, at the bottom of the page. So these next two things I'm going to talk about are the Google answer box. This was very controversial with SEOs across the board, because it actually is Google trying to provide an answer without you ever having to click into a website. You want traffic, we want traffic, so this really was a problem for search engines, but there is a way. So for the answer box, which you guys know what I'm talking about, like it's that first little top of the box, it's used for common questions like, when you Google what temperature to cook chicken. They might answer it for you, but sometimes they will also include a link. And to get in that placement, you have to be ranking on the first page of Google, and that's a pretty easy one to understand. If you want to be there, you have to follow all the other rules that will get you to the first page. This is pretty much how Google makes sure that the answer is accurate to your search query, and that's their #1 goal, is matching user with search query, and that is all. So there's several things that you can do to get into that placement by answering the content, promoting, sort of that evergreen content. If you are a blogger working and you do some how-tos or tips or hacks, all of these things, recipes, this is a great space for them to include you at the top. And then you will have noticed that Google now places under that more drop-down. So if a user's looking for, the example on the screen is chocolate chip cookie recipe, Google is saying a user might also have other questions within that recipe that, within their search query that you would find useful. So instead of building like 6 pages to cover one topic, you can still add all that useful information onto one post, and Google will break it out. And so a user might be on the page and see your actual link several times in the search results. This is just their way of encouraging the avoidance of thin content. Thin content, you might have heard about that a lot in the past. It is where you're not fully giving the supporting details that you should be, that would make the query really useful to the user. So I encourage you all to take the time to do the in-depth articles instead of just, a quick post. Put the extra time into it. There's data to support that long-form articles do much better on the first page of search results than short little pieces. Obviously, if you're covering something that is newsy or very short, then that's fine. Don't force the content. But if you have a topic that is perfect for long form, put in the extra effort to write it. Your users will thank you for it also. All right, the next one I'm going to talk about is Google News and local search. Commonly with bloggers, you may not have a shop, right? You might not have a physical location. If you do out there, I strongly suggest to look into Google local search. This is where a user is searching for a store, a location, things along those lines, and they're heavily prevalent on the first page with maps and all that sort of details you might need about that shop. So that is Google Local, another huge opportunity to appear on the first page if you are a site that has a store. And Google News, this is one of just the best opportunities to really drive traffic to your site. If you are a site covering trending news or certainly entertainment news, things along those lines, you can apply for Google's news program. I recommend doing that. We've seen it drive a lot of traffic throughout the years, and Google is getting stricter on their Google News guidelines though. So make sure, above all things, keep it accurate. Whatever you're writing about needs to be supported, cited, very accurate for Google to consider it news. But if you do meet that, I would definitely check out Google News and try to get in there. It can drive a lot of traffic. All right, videos and images. These are two of my favorite sort of elements on the page. How many of you out there are using videos in any way to promote yourself, video, whatever it is you're doing out there and the content you're creating? Google image search and videos are placed at the top of the search results. But Google can't see, they can't tell what is inside a video or an image, so it's really important to tell them. And if you do have videos on your page, first of all, YouTube is the place for you to be working on. There's a lot of other video platforms out there that might be great, but please make sure you also have a presence on YouTube, because Google and their connection to YouTube, they own it. Almost 9 out of 10 times, you will only see YouTube video results in the search engines. So make sure, even if you are using other more mobile-friendlier platforms for video, to also post them on YouTube. because they can't tell what the video is of, it's very recommended to put some content around the pages, right? Google is all about the content, and for images, you want to add an alt text and the file name to also tell Google what the image is of, and they can't see it. There's a really cool new feature where in Google Analytics, it's going to actually break out the traffic that you're seeing from image search. This has never happened before. I've always had to sort of blindly make the case for editorial team members to take the time to add alt text because I could never prove that they drove traffic. That's going to change soon, so I encourage you when it comes to your posts, especially visual, and as you work with Pinterest, those need to be filled out for that spot too, the actual descriptions of the images, so you can kind of use that in 2 different fields to target 2 different platforms. All right, and on the carousels. So this is primarily, you'll see it on mobile landing pages, and Google's doing it for a wide variety of different topics, even news stories, recipes, things to do, activities, all of those sort of areas that have so many different options for users. They're putting them in this vertical scrolling carousel. And to get into that placement, you have to have what's called accelerated mobile pages on your website. For those of you using WordPress, it's a plugin. WordPress is amazing. Find the plugins that will take care of this for you so that you can rank in different areas of the search results. It's called, again, AMP. You'll see it. It's accelerated mobile pages. That's a different way to be in the mobile results, and also just very targeted towards search. If you're posting about activities to do in New York City, include those keywords on the page, in the headline, things of that nature to have a chance to be in those spots. They can drive a lot of traffic. All right, well, I am just about done here, but I wanted to leave you with some top 5 SEO tips. And the first one is quality over quantity. This is one of my favorites to talk about. It really is where Google's moving, right? They have such a liability and responsibility to put accurate content in the search results. And that said, though, if you are trying to grow your blog, posting twice a month isn't going to get you probably to the level of authority that you need. So I know everything is really big with social now and things of that sort. That's all great. But if you're trying to build a brand, I firmly recommend that you're posting frequently enough. Not 10 posts a day, but at least a couple, 5, 6 a week to try to post. Another SEO tip is invest in web design. This is one where I've talked to bloggers throughout the years that if they come to me and wanted me to consult them on any level, and I look at the site and it's a WordPress theme from 1999, take the time to invest in web design. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's competitive out there. So when a user hits a site that doesn't have a great look and feel, an easy navigation, things of that sort, it's really hard to go beyond that. So take the time to develop a site, have it look really great. Another one is to make sure that you know your way at least a little bit about Google Analytics. This is something, if you don't have it on your site, get it on your site because it will inform you of what is performing well. You need to know that so you can do more of it. So that's just something, even if it's just looking at which posts are driving the most traffic. This tells you what your audience is most interested in. Another one, lastly here, is keyword research. I want to quickly explain that there's a difference from keywords all over your page. We don't need that anymore. Google gets it. Google understands there's so much just better at understanding what a page is about. You don't need it 10 times on the page, but you do probably need to get it in the title tag and the intro graph. Write naturally, but understand your audience. So instead of maybe doing keyword research, I listed some really cool tools on the slide that you see of free tools. These aren't going to give you keyword volume. I would like you all to throw that out of your head. Keyword volume does not equate to the amount of traffic, but use it directionally. If you are trying to find out what your audience is most interested in, then it's really important to understand on a topically what does well and what people are interested in the search. So I think that's all for today, and thank you guys so much for listening. If you do have SEO questions, I will be back in the booth for She Knows Media, and I'm happy to send this deck out or talk to any of you further. Thank you very much.